Thought to be a copy of a lost original veiled with overpainting, the most expensive painting ever to be sold in public auction is rediscovered after 500 years, restored and included in a major exhibition of Leonardo da Vinci's work at the National Gallery in London 2011 to 2012. But is this Da Vinci's work? And more to the point, where the hell is this painting? Because nobody actually knows. But this is just the beginning of this strange story of the elusive Salvator Mundi that has so many twists and turns. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Carmen, and I like to dive into the abyss of those what the F moments in our universe, be it phenomena, natural anomalies, strange science, or just plain weird behavior. Welcome to my channel. Salvator Mundi, Latin for Saviour of the World, is a painting attributed in whole or in part to the Italian High Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci, dated to approximately 1499 to 1510. It was rediscovered after 500 years, restored and included in a major exhibition of Leonardo's work at the National Gallery in London in 2011 and 2012. The painting depicts Christ in an anachronistic blue Renaissance dress, making the sign of the cross with his right hand while holding a transparent, non-refracting crystal orb in his left, signaling his role as Salvator Mundi and representing the celestial sphere of the heavens. Approximately 30 copies and variations of the work by pupils and followers of Leonardo have been identified. 2 preparatory chalk and ink drawings of the drapery by Leonardo are held in the British Royal Collection. The painting was sold at auction for a whopping $450.3 million on 15th of November 2017 by Christie's in New York to Prince Bader bin Abdullah Al Saud, setting a new record for the most expensive painting ever sold at public auction. Prince Bader allegedly made the purchase on behalf of Abu Dhabi's Department of Culture and Tourism, but it has since been posited that he may have been a stand-in bidder for his close ally, the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This follows reports in late 2017 that the painting would be put on display at the Louvre Abu Dhabi, and the unexplained cancellation of its scheduled unveiling in September 2018. The current location of the painting has been reported as unknown, but a report in June 2019 stated that it was being stored on bin Salman's yacht, pending the completion of a cultural centre in Al Ula, and a later report indicated it may be in storage in Switzerland. The history of Salvator Mundi has had a lot of twists and turns. It was sold at auction in 1958, with its authorship unknown, for less than $100. In the late 2000s, it was sold again, restored and identified as a Da Vinci work. The painting was displayed in London's National Gallery in 2011. In 2013, the chemicals billionaire Dmitry Rybolovlev purchased it for $127.5 million. A major flaw in the painting makes some historians think it's a fake. The crystal orb in the image doesn't distort light in the way natural physics does, which would be an unusual error for Da Vinci. It's transparent in a way that shows exactly what's behind it. A real glass sphere would show a distorted version of what's behind it. Da Vinci's version shows a clear version of Christ's robes, as if it were a window pane. It appears to be a rookie mistake. After being bought and sold a few times, the painting was lost to history until 2011, when it was rediscovered and authenticated as one of Da Vinci's works. But the glass orb raises some doubts about the painting's authenticity, according to some experts. It's especially puzzling because Da Vinci was famously fastidious about the reflection and refraction of light in his work. At the time he made Salvator Mundi, he was, quote, deep into his optics studies, unquote, and filled his notebooks with diagrams of light bouncing at different angles, and refracts were an obsession for him. Solid glass or crystal, whether shaped like an orb or a lens, produces magnified, inverted, and reversed images. Instead, Leonardo painted the orb as if it were a hollow glass bubble that does not refract or distort the light passing through it. In one respect, it is rendered with beautiful scientific precision, but Leonardo failed to paint the distortion that would occur when looking through a solid, clear orb at objects that are not touching the orb. Some argue that if Leonardo had accurately depicted the distortions, the palm touching the orb would have remained the way he painted it, but hovering inside the orb would be a reduced and inverted mirror image of Christ's robes and arm. Those who question the painting's attribution to Leonardo not only consider the depiction of Jesus as having feeble features, but they also describe the head-on composition as stiff and unlike Leonardo's characteristic twisting poses. Frank Zollner of the University of Leipzig wrote in an art journal in 2013 that the painting could be a high-quality product of Leonardo's workshop, or even a later follower. Michael Daly, the director of Artwatch UK, said, "There isn't enough to claim it's a Leonardo. His figural development was towards greater naturalism and complexity of posture, heads turning this way, shoulders turning the other way with twists and movement. The Salvator Mundi is deadpan flat, like an icon, with no real depth in the modelling." Another unexplained peculiarity is that the figure itself is heavily and uncharacteristically cropped. Defenders of the painting's authenticity say Da Vinci ignored physics on purpose, perhaps to illustrate Christ's powers. Christie's maintains that the painting is authentic and speculates that Da Vinci included a distractingly incorrect glass globe because he didn't want to distract viewers from Christ himself. The reason for the interest in this painting may have had to do with the seemingly exorbitant sum paid for a painting with a number of serious defects, which theoretically should have kept its auction price in check. These issues include the Salvator Mundi's poor condition, debatable attribution, and unconfirmed history. When two New York dealers purchased the Salvator Mundi in 2005 at a small auction in New Orleans, it was in bad shape. The piece had been inadequately restored and heavily overpainted. Moreover, its wood support had been infested with worms. The dealers took the work to renowned art restorer Diane Modestini, who oversaw the support's reconstruction and then stripped the overpainting and filled in missing parts. Yet, despite Modestini's painstaking efforts, the painting still appears rather odd. The face of Christ, the focus of the piece, remains ghostly, and his features appear weak. The painting certainly does not inspire the same contemplation or admiration that Leonardo's other works do, while many critics later noted that the Salvator Mundi has interesting passages, including the soft modelling of Jesus' right hand and the finesse of his tight curls. They doubted that the work was entirely by Leonardo. News reports in 2021 from the New York Times described an undisclosed Louvre document that confirmed the painting's attribution to Leonardo after rigorous scientific analysis. But because the Salvator Mundi was never shown at the museum, as had been planned for the 2019 Leonardo exhibition, officials are prohibited by law from discussing the evaluation or authentication of privately owned works. Consequently, no official record of the painting's attribution officially exists. Christie's presented a narrative in its promotional material wherein the painting appeared in 1650 on the inventory records of Charles I of England. But that claim was always shaky, and journalist Ben Lewis's investigation of the Salvator Mundi's provenance cast doubt on that point, suggesting that the work listed in Charles I's inventory was a different painting with Salvator iconography. Indeed, a version of the painting in Moscow's Pushkin Museum was certainly part of the English Royal Collection, for it is stamped with CR, which stands for Carolus Rex, on the back of its support. It is more likely that this painting, which is attributed to Giampietrino, a pupil of Leonardo's, is the one referred to in the Charles I inventory. Hence, there are no confirmed records of the nearly $500 million Salvator Mundi painting until 1900, when it was acquired by Sir John Charles Robinson for the collection of Sir Francis Cook in London. That means the provenance has a nearly 400-year gap between the painting's supposed creation and its appearance on the market. Also, do not forget that nobody actually knows where this painting is. Nobody has seen it since the auction in 2017. This is the painting that keeps disappearing. Art historians have suggested several possibilities for when the work was executed and who the patron may have been. Christie stated that it was probably commissioned around 1500, shortly after King Louis XII of France conquered the Duchy of Milan and took control of Genoa in the Second Italian War. Leonardo himself moved from Milan to Florence in 1500. The art historian Luke Sison agrees, dating the painting to approximately 1499, though Martin Kemp and Frank Zollner date the work to approximately 1504 to 1510 and 1507 or later, respectively. based on their similarity in style and materials to the studies for the Virgin and Child with St. Anne. Carlo Pedretti dates the drapery studies in the royal collection and thus the painting to 1510-1515. Because of the specificity of the subject, Leonardo's Salvator Mundi was probably commissioned by a specific patron rather than produced on speculation. Isabella d'Este, Duchess of Milan, is cited as a possible patron, as in 1504 she had wished to commission from Leonardo a, quote, youthful Christ of around 12 years, of that age that he had when he disputed in the temple, unquote, though Salvator Mundi shows a more mature Christ. Carlo Pedretti notes that Isabella d'Este was a guest of Leonardo's patron Giuliano de' Medici in 1514, and so may have convinced the artist to complete the commission at that time. Martin Kemp does not draw conclusions, but likewise discusses the possibility of Isabella d'Este as patron, though he also considers the Hungarian king, Matthias Corvinus, Charles VIII of France, and others. Joanne Snow Smith argued that Leonardo painted the Salvator Mundi for Louis XII of France and his consort Anne of Brittany. This view was echoed by the Royal Collection in their 2018 exhibition Leonardo da Vinci, A Life in Drawing, and is supported by the early French provenance of many of the copies of Salvator Mundi. The painting would have been used in the context of personal devotion, as were other panels of this size and subject in the 16th century. Indeed, Snow Smith emphasizes in her writings the devotional relationship that Louis XII and Anne of Brittany had with the Salvator Mundi as a subject, and Frank Zoellner discussed the painting's relationship to French illuminated manuscripts in the practice of early 16th century personal devotion and prayer. It is possible that the painting was recorded in a 1525 inventory of Salai's estate as Cristo in mondo de uno Dio Padre, though it is unclear to which Salvator Mundi this might refer. The provenance of the painting breaks after 1530. The Salvator Mundi as an image type predates Leonardo. Thus, Martin Kemp argues that on one hand, Leonardo was constrained in his composition by the expected iconography of the Salvator Mundi, but on the other hand, he was able to use the image as a vehicle for spiritual communication between the spectator and the likeness of Christ. The composition has its sources in Byzantine art, the imagery of which further developed in Northern Europe before finding its place in the Italian states. Snow Smith relates the development of the Salvator Mundi to Byzantine iconography and narratives of images of Christ not made by human hands. Images of Christ holding a sphere became widely popular following Charlemagne's adoption of the globus cruciger and the scepter. The earliest true Salvator Mundi images are found in Northern Europe. Indeed, the iconography of the Salvator Mundi came in fruition in paintings such as Robert Campin's Blessing Christ and Praying Virgin, and in the central panel of Rogier van der Weyden's Braque Triptych, before such images became common in Italy later in the 15th century. Works by such artists as Antonello da Messina and his Christ Blessing betray the influence of northern artists in the Italian states. The earliest Italian example of a Salvator Mundi is likely to be Simone Martini's Salvator Mundi, surrounded by angels, at the Palais des Papes, Avignon. This image shows Christ at full length rather than the bust-length portrayals of later paintings of the Salvator Mundi. The image of Salvator Mundi later became well known in Italy and especially Venice through the archetype from Giovanni Bellini, now known only through copies. This includes Andrea Previtali's painting at the National Gallery in London. Another 15th century example can be seen in the Palazzo Ducale in Urbino in the very damaged painting by Melozzo da Forlì. It has been suggested that Leonardo based his composition on this specific example. There are at least 30 copies and variations of the painting executed by Leonardo's pupils and followers, as counted by Robert Simon. The large number of these paintings is an important part of the pedigree of Leonardo's paintings and emphasizes that there must have been an original by Leonardo from which they were copied. The most significant and widely discussed among these is the painting formerly in the Degane collection, as this one shares most closely the same composition and demonstrates the highest technical skill of Leonardo's pupils. This is so much the case that Joanne Snow Smith proposed it to be the original painting in 1978. The many other copies found in Naples, Detroit, Warsaw, Zurich, and other public and private collections contain various attributions to members of Leonardo's pupils and followers. Some versions differ significantly from the original. Two examples can be found in the form of a portrait, such as in Salai's 1511 painting, as well as in a painting sold at Sotheby's on 5th of December 2018, both of which use Leonardo's Salvator Mundi as their model, but which do not employ the iconography of the Blessed Hand or globe. Other artists use the same model, but for other subjects, as is the case with Leonardo's Spanish follower, Fernando Yáñez de la Almedina, and the Eucharistic Christ now at the Museo del Prado. Leonardo's studio and his followers likewise produced at least 4 Salvator Mundi panels depicting a youthful Christ, who is less frontal in his pose and who holds a terrestrial globe. These are largely from Leonardo's Milanese following rather than from members of his studio, though the variant in Rome can reasonably be attributed to his pupil Marco d'Orgiano. This painting seems to have been at James Hamilton's Chelsea Manor in London from 1638 to 1641. After participating in the English Civil War, Hamilton was executed on 9th of March 1649, and some of his possessions were taken to the Netherlands to be sold. The Bohemian artist Wenceslaus Holler could have made his engraved copy, dated 1650, in Antwerp at that time. It was also recorded in Henrietta Maria's possession in 1649, the same year her husband Charles I was executed on 30th of January. The painting was included in an inventory of the royal collection, valued at £30, and Charles's possessions were put up for sale under the English Commonwealth. The painting was sold to a creditor in 1651, returned to Charles II after the English Restoration in 1660, and included in an inventory of Charles's possessions at the Palace of Whitehall in 1666. It was inherited by James II and may have remained with him until it passed to his mistress, Catherine Sedley, whose illegitimate daughter with James became the third wife of John Sheffield, Duke of Buckingham. The Duke's illegitimate son, Sir Charles Herbert Sheffield, auctioned the painting in 1763 along with other artworks from Buckingham House when the building was sold. The painting was probably placed in a gilded frame in the 19th century, in which it remained until 2005. It is probably the painting bought by the British collector Francis Cook in 1900 from J.C. Robinson for his collection at Doughty House in Richmond, London. The painting had been damaged by previous restoration attempts and was attributed to Bernardino Luini, a follower of Leonardo. Sir Francis Cook, 4th Baronet, Cook's great-grandson, sold it at an auction in 1958 for £45 as a work by Leonardo's pupil, Giovanni Antonio Boltraffio, to whom the painting remained attributed until 2011. The original painting by Leonardo was thought to have been destroyed or lost around 1603. In 1978, Joanne Snow Smith argued that the copy in the collection of the Marquis Jean-Louis de Ganay in Paris was the lost original, based on, among other things, its similarity to Leonardo's St. John the Baptist. While Snow Smith was thorough in her research in regard to the provenance of the painting and its relationship to Holla, few art historians were convinced of her attribution. In 2005, a Salvator Mundi was presented at an auction at the St. Charles Gallery Auction House in New Orleans, consigned from the estate of the Baton Rouge businessman Basil Clovis Hendry Sr. It had been heavily overpainted to the point where the painting resembled a copy and was, before restoration, described as a wreck, dark and gloomy. It was acquired by a consortium of art dealers that included Alexander Parrish and Robert Simon, a specialist in old masters. The consortium paid $1,175 for the painting. The consortium believed there was a possibility that this seemingly low-quality work might be Leonardo's long-missing original. As a consequence, they commissioned Diane Dwyer Modestini at New York University to oversee the restoration. When Modestini began removing the overpainting with acetone at the beginning of the restoration process, she discovered that at some point, a stepped area of unevenness near Christ's face had been shaved down with a sharp object and also leveled with a mixture of gesso, paint and glue. Using infrared photographs Simon had taken of the painting, Modestini discovered a pentimento, which is a trace of an earlier composition, which had the blessing hand's thumb in a straight rather than curved position. The discovery that Christ had two thumbs on his right hand was crucial. This pentimento showed that the original artist had reconsidered the position of the figure. Such a second thought is considered evidence of an original, rather than a copy, as a painting copied from the finished original would not have such an alteration part way through the painting process. Modestini proceeded to have the panel specialist Monika Griesbach chisel off a woodworm-infested, maroflaged panel, which had caused the painting to break into 7 pieces. Griesbach reassembled the painting with adhesive and wood slivers. In late 2006, Modestini began her restoration effort. The art historian Martin Kemp was critical of the result. Both thumbs of the painting's raw state are rather better than the one painted by Diane. Other experts have also been critical of the extensive level of restoration undertaken by Modestini, and that it had impeded any attribution of the work, and some calling it a contemporary work or a masterpiece by Modestini. From November 2011 through February 2012, the painting was exhibited at the National Gallery, London, as an autograph work by Leonardo, after authentication by that gallery. The painting was stored at the Dallas Museum of Art for the remainder of 2012, while museum leadership attempted and failed to raise the necessary funds to purchase the painting. In May 2013, the Swiss dealer Yves Bouvier purchased the painting for just over $75 million in a private sale brokered by Sotheby's, New York. The painting was then sold to the Russian collector Dmitry Rybolovlev for $127.5 million. The price that Rybolovlev paid was therefore significantly higher, well beyond the 2% commission Bouvier was supposed to receive, according to Rybolovlev himself. Consequently, this sale, along with several other sales Bouvier made to Rybolovlev, created a legal dispute between Rybolovlev and Bouvier, as well as between the original dealers of the painting and Sotheby's. In 2016, the dealers sued Sotheby's for the difference of the sale, arguing that they were shortchanged. The auction house has denied knowing that Rybolovlev was the intended buyer and sought to dismiss the lawsuit. In 2018, Rybolovlev also sued Sotheby's for $380 million, alleging that the auction house knowingly participated in a defrauding scheme by Bouvier in which the painting played a part. Rybolovlev's lawyers believe email exchanges between Bouvier and Sotheby's confirmed this. About a year into her restoration effort, Diane Dwyer Modestini noted that color transitions in the subject's lips were perfect and that no artist could have done that. Upon studying the Mona Lisa for comparison, she concluded that the artist who painted her was the same hand that had painted the Salvator Mundi. Since then, she has disseminated high-resolution images and technical information online for the scholarly community and public. In 2006, Nicholas Penny, director of the National Gallery, wrote that he and some of his colleagues considered the work an autograph Leonardo, but that, quote, some of us consider there may be parts which are by the workshop, unquote. Penny conducted a side-by-side study of the Salvator Mundi and the Virgin of the Rocks in 2008. Martin Kemp later said of the meeting, I left the studio thinking Leonardo must be heavily involved and that no one in the assembly was openly expressing doubt that Leonardo was responsible for the painting. In a 2011 consensus decision facilitated by Penny, the attribution to Leonardo was agreed upon unequivocally. By July 2011, separate press release documents were issued by the owner's publicity representative and the National Gallery, officially announcing this new discovery. Once it was cleaned and restored, the painting was compared with and found superior to 20 other versions of the composition. It was on display in the National Gallery's exhibition Leonardo da Vinci, Painter at the Court of Milan, from November 2011 to February 2012. Several features in the painting have led to the positive attribution. A number of pentimenti are evident, most notably the position of the right thumb. The sfumato effect of the face, evidently achieved in part by manipulating the paint using the heel of the hand, is typical of many works by Leonardo. The way the ringlets of hair and the knotwork across the stole have been handled is also seen as indicative of Leonardo's style. Furthermore, the pigments and the walnut panel upon which the work was executed are consistent with other Leonardo paintings. Additionally, the hands in the painting are very detailed, something for which Leonardo is known. He would dissect the limbs of the deceased in order to study them and render body parts in an extremely lifelike manner. One of the world's leading Leonardo experts, Martin Kemp, who helped authenticate the work, said that he knew immediately upon first viewing the restored painting that it was the work of Leonardo. Quote, "It had that kind of presence that Leonardo's have, that uncanny strangeness that the later Leonardo paintings manifest," unquote. Of the better preserved parts, such as the hair, Kemp notes, "It's got that kind of uncanny vortex, as if the hair is a living, moving substance, or like water, which is what Leonardo said hair was like," unquote. Kemp also states, however skilled Leonardo's followers and imitators might have been, none of them reached out into such realms of philosophical and subtle speculation. We cannot reasonably doubt that here we are in the presence of the painter from Vinci. Experts further state that the doubled outline of the heel of the hand holding the sphere, which the restorer described as a pentimento, is an accurate rendering of the double refraction produced by a transparent calcite or rock crystal sphere. However, this continues outside the globe itself. Kemp further notes that the orb sparkles with a series of internal inclusions or pockets of air, evidence in support of its being solid. More recently, the globe has been also interpreted as a magnifying instrument consisting of a vitreous globe filled with water, which in nature would also distort the background. André J. Noest suggests that the three painted specks represent celestial bodies. The orb in Leonardo's painting, experts say, has an amazing series of glistening little apertures. They're like bubbles, but they're not round, painted very delicately with just a touch of impasto, a touch of dark, and these little sort of glistening things, particularly around the part where you get the back reflections. These are the characteristic features of rock crystal on which Leonardo was an avid expert. He had been asked to evaluate vases that Isabella d'Este had thought of purchasing and greatly admired the properties of the mineral. Iconographically, the crystal sphere relates to the heavens. In Ptolemaic cosmology, the stars were embedded in a fixed celestial crystalline sphere composed of aether, with the spherical Earth at the center of the universe. So what you've got in the Salvator Mundi, Kemp states, is really a savior of the cosmos, and this is a very Leonardesque transformation. Another aspect of Leonardo's painting Kemp studied was depth of field or shallow focus. Christ's blessing hand appears to be in sharp focus, whereas his face, though altered or damaged to some extent, is in soft focus. In his manuscript of 1508-1509, known as Paris Manuscript D, Leonardo explored theories of vision, optics of the eye, and theories relating to shadow, light, and colour. In the Salvator Mundi, he deliberately placed an emphasis on parts of the picture over others. Elements in the foreground are seen in focus, while elements further from the picture plane, such as the subject's face, are barely in focus. Paris Manuscript D shows that Leonardo was investigating this particular phenomenon around the turn of the century. Combined, the intellectual aspects, optical aspects, and the use of semi-precious minerals are distinctive features of Leonardo's oeuvre. Furthermore, the extraordinary quality of the picture, especially evident in its best preserved areas, and its close adherence in style to Leonardo's known paintings from circa 1500, solidifies the consensus that this painting is an original Da Vinci. According to Robert Simon, Leonardo painted the Salvator Mundi with walnut oil rather than linseed oil, as all the other artists in that period did. In fact, he wrote about using walnut oil as it was a new advanced technique. Simon also states that ultraviolet imaging reveals that the darker areas of the painting are mostly owing to the restoration. The rest is original paint. The art critic Ben Lewis, who disputes a full attribution to Leonardo, admits that his authorship of the work is possible, owing to the originality of the face, which has something modern about it. Kemp says, "I don't rule out the possibility of studio participation, but I cannot define any areas that I would say are studio work." An examination of the painting had been conducted by the Louvre's laboratory C2RMF in June 2018. A publication was prepared by the Louvre and printed in December 2019 in case the Louvre had the chance to present the painting in its exhibition, and was temporarily available in the Louvre bookshop. It contains essays by Vincent de Leuven, the chief curator of paintings at the Louvre, and Miriam Eveno and Elizabeth Ravaud from the Louvre's laboratory. In his preface, the museum's director, Jean-Luc Martinez, states that, quote, "The results of the historical and scientific study presented in this publication allow us to confirm the attribution of the work to Leonardo da Vinci. An appealing hypothesis which was initially presented in 2010 and which has sometimes been disputed." De Leuven differentiated the picture from other studio versions, including the Gannet version that appeared in the Louvre's Leonardo exhibition, by the presence of subtle underpainting, numerous pentimenti, and pictorial quality. He concludes, "All these factors invite us to privilege the idea of a work that is entirely autograph, sadly damaged by the poor conservation of the work and by previous restorations which were too brutal." In the discussion of the scientific evidence, Ravaud and Eveno write, "The examination of the Salvator Mundi seems to us to demonstrate that the painting was indeed executed by Leonardo. It is essential in this context to distinguish the original parts from those that have been changed or repainted, and this is indeed what was carried out during this study, notably by using X-ray fluorescence." Examination under a microscope revealed very skillful execution, notably in the skin colouring and in the curls of the hair, and great refinement, notably in the depiction of the relief of the embroidery or the knotwork. Radiography showed up the same very faint outlines as in the St. Anne, Mona Lisa and St. John the Baptist, characteristic of Leonardo's work after 1500. The number of changes made during the creation of the work also plead in favour of an autograph work. The first version of the central plastron with a pointed form is immediately comparable to the central part of the tunic in the Windsor drawing, and to our knowledge is not seen anywhere else. In addition, the movement of the thumb was also noted in the St. John by Leonardo. After intensive studies of the other Leonardo works in the Louvre's collection, it seems to us that a number of the techniques observed in the Salvator Mundi are typical of Leonardo. The originality of the preparation, the use of ground glass, and the remarkable use of vermilion in the hair and shadows. These latest elements all plead in favour of a late work by Leonardo, after St. John the Baptist and dating from the Second Milan period. Some respected experts on Renaissance art question the full attribution of the painting to Leonardo. Jacques Franck, a Paris-based art historian and Leonardo specialist, who has studied the Mona Lisa out of the frame multiple times, stated, "The composition does not come from Leonardo. He preferred twisted movement. It's a good studio work with a little Leonardo at best, and it's very damaged. It's been called the male Mona Lisa, but it doesn't look like it at all." Carmen Bambach, a specialist in Italian Renaissance art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, questioned full attribution to Leonardo. Having studied and followed the picture during its conservation treatment and seeing it in the context in the National Gallery exhibition, much of the original painting surface may be by Boltraffio, but with passages done by Leonardo himself, namely Christ's proper right blessing hand, portions of the sleeve, his left hand, and the crystal orb he holds. In 2019, Bambach criticised Christie's for its claim that she was one of the experts who had attributed the painting to Leonardo. In her 2019 book, Leonardo da Vinci Rediscovered, she is even more specific, attributing most of the work to Boltraffio, with only small retouchings by the master himself. Matthew Landrus, an art historian at the University of Oxford, agreed with the concept of parts of the painting being executed by Leonardo, between 5 and 20%, but attributes the painting to Leonardo's studio assistant, Bernardino Luini, noting Luini's ability in painting gold tracery. Frank Zollner, the author of the catalogue Raisonner, Leonardo da Vinci, The Complete Paintings and Drawings, writes, "Overcleaning resulted in abrasion over the entire painting, especially in the face and hair. Above Christ's left eye are visible marks that the artist made to soften the flesh with the heel of his hand. This attribution is controversial primarily on two grounds. Firstly, the badly damaged painting had to undergo very extensive restoration, which makes its original quality extremely difficult to assess. Secondly, the Salvator Mundi, in its present state, exhibits a strongly developed sfumato technique that corresponds more closely to the manner of a talented Leonardo pupil active in the 1520s than to the style of the master himself. The way in which the painting was placed on the market also gave rise to concern. Zollner also explains that the quality of Salvator Mundi surpasses other known versions. However, it also exhibits a number of weaknesses. The flesh tones of the Blessed Hand, for example, appear pallid and waxen, as in a number of workshop paintings. Christ's ringlets also seem to me too schematic in their execution. The larger drapery folds too undifferentiated, especially on the right-hand side. It will probably only be possible to arrive at a more informed verdict on this question after the results of the painting's technical analyses have been published in full. In a subsequent interview for the 2021 documentary, The Lost Leonardo, Zollner said, "You have the old parts of the painting, which are original, these are by pupils, and the new parts of the painting, which look like Leonardo, but they are by the restorer. In some part, it's a masterpiece by Diane Modestini." In Paris, the Louvre's request for the Salvator Mundi to be exhibited in its Leonardo da Vinci exhibition of 2019 to 2020 was reportedly met without response. The New York Times reported in April 2021 that the non-appearance was because the French were unwilling to meet Saudi demands that the painting be hung alongside the Mona Lisa. The Louvre's inability to comment on the matter in the interim, however, led to speculation that its absence was due to doubts over its full attribution to the artist. In November 2021, scholars at the Museo del Prado included the painting under Attributed Works, workshop of authorized and supervised by Leonardo, in the catalogue for Leonardo and the copy of the Mona Lisa. The Prado curator Ana González Monzo wrote in the catalogue that the Gannet collection copy of the Salvator Mundi was likely the closest to Leonardo's original design, and that it was likely done by the same artist that painted the Prado copy of the Mona Lisa. The curator of the Louvre's 2019 to 2020 Leonardo exhibition, Vincent de Leuven, wrote in the Prado catalogue that the painting had details of surprisingly poor quality, and that it is to be hoped that a future permanent display of the work will allow it to be reanalyzed with greater objectivity. The British art historian Charles Hope dismissed the attribution to Leonardo entirely in a January 2020 analysis of the painting's quality and provenance. He doubted that Leonardo would have painted a work where the eyes were not level and the drapery undistorted by a crystal orb. He added the picture itself is a ruin, with the face much restored to make it reminiscent of the Mona Lisa. Hope condemned the National Gallery's involvement in Simon's astute marketing campaign. In August 2020, Jacques Franck, who had previously called the portrait a good studio work with a little Leonardo at best, cited its childishly conceived left hand, as well as the oddly long and thin nose, the simplified mouth, and the overshadowy neck, as evidence that Leonardo did not paint it. More precisely, Franck now attributes the painting to Salai jointly with Boltraffio. In effect, the work's infrared reflectogram betrays a very singular sketching out technique never seen in any of Leonardo's original paintings, yet encountered in Salai's Head of Christ of 1511, in the Pinacoteca Ambrosiana, a composition close to the Saudi Salvator Mundi and signed by the artist. This claim is also supported by the fact that a stricto sensu Salvator Mundi painting is recorded in Salai's posthumous inventory of the estate established in Milan on 25th of April 1525. In November 2020, a newly discovered drawing of Christ surfaced, possibly by Leonardo, and with notable differences from the painting. A private collector in Lecco showed the red chalk drawing of Jesus Christ to Annalisa Di Maria, a Leonardo scholar associated with the UNESCO Center in Florence, and she immediately saw in it the hand of Leonardo. "This is the true face of Salvator Mundi," Di Maria said. "It recalls everything in the drawings of Leonardo. It is his language and speaks loud and clear. Looking at the work for the first time was," she added, "breathtaking." Di Maria compares the drawing to Leonardo's best-known self-portrait, noting that both were done in the three-quarters view that the artist favored. Salvator Mundi, on the other hand, shows Jesus head-on, staring directly at the viewer. Now, Di Maria claims that the newly discovered Leonardo drawing proves that the Salvator Mundi is not the artist's work, because the drawing of Jesus is a study for the actual Leonardo work of that title, which has a totally different, more dynamic composition. I'm not the only one who has always said that. Salvator Mundi was not actually by Leonardo, Di Maria said. Leonardo could never have portrayed such a frontal and motionless character. The drawing, whose discovery was first announced by the Leonardo da Vinci International Committee, was originally to have been unveiled at a conference in Florence. Di Maria plans to present her 80-page paper on the work once Italy lifts lockdown restrictions. According to Di Maria, scientific testing dates the paper to the early 16th century, and the figure's beard and eyes closely match Leonardo's style. But despite her certainty, a final verdict on the drawing's authenticity and what that means for Salvator Mundi is still pending. I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand, but I simply can't tell without seeing the drawing and the scientific evidence. Leonardo expert Martin Kemp said, "I would need to see if it is drawn left-handed. Leonardo drew everything with his left hand." The painting was exhibited in Hong Kong, London, San Francisco, and New York in 2017, and then sold at auction at Christie's in New York on 15th of November 2017 for $450,312,500, a new record price for an artwork. The hammer price was $400 million plus $50.3 million in fees. The purchaser was identified as the Saudi Arabian prince Bader bin Abdullah. In December 2017, the Wall Street Journal reported that Prince Bader was an intermediary for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. However, Christie's confirmed that Prince Bader acted on behalf of Abu Dhabi's Department of Culture and Tourism for display at the Louvre, Abu Dhabi. In September 2018, the exhibition was indefinitely postponed, and a news report of January 2019 noted that no one knows where it is and there are grave concerns for its physical safety. Georgina Adam, editor-at-large of the art newspaper, dismissed these reports, stating that we believe it's in storage in Geneva. In June 2019, the painting was reported to be on a luxury yacht belonging to bin Salman, sailing on the Red Sea. The painting again failed to appear in the Louvre's Paris exhibition of Leonardo's works, held from 24th October 2019 to the 24th of February 2020. The exhibition displayed 11 paintings by Leonardo of the fewer than 20 known to survive, but not the Salvator Mundi. However, the 46-page booklet that accompanied the exhibition, briefly available in the museum bookshop, detailed the Louvre's scientific examinations and concluded that the results of the historical and scientific study allow us to confirm the attribution of the work to Leonardo da Vinci. In June 2021, the Observer newspaper quoted skeptical comments about the sale from Robert King Whitman, a former FBI art crime specialist. Why anyone would pay that kind of money for a piece that had questions about it is very strange. That particular painting is not worth what was paid for it, so there is a suspicious aspect to it, and the provenance is very murky. The internet went a little bonkers in response to the sale, leading to sarcastic and humorous comments and memes on Twitter, Instagram, and other social media sites. Similarly, Stephanie Eckhart noted how the ongoing saga of Salvator Mundi indisputably belongs in the meme canon. In an article in the Art Market Monitor, Marion Maneka compared the sensationalism around Salvator Mundi to the media coverage surrounding the theft of the Mona Lisa from the Louvre in 1911. Just as the international media sensationalism lifted the painting to a high international status, she argued, so too did Christie's marketing campaign and media sensationalism lead to its high sales price. Alexandra Kim of the Harvard Crimson similarly described the reason for the painting's newfound fame. Why are we still so adamantly curious about Salvator Mundi? The New York Times, The Guardian, and more have covered this painting and its aftermath. It now seems that the drama surrounding this infamous painting has created a whole new work of art larger than the Salvator Mundi itself. The attention has grossly inflated its value. The more we discuss the work, the more curious we are, until it becomes a shining ball of artistic enlightenment. The narratives surrounding the painting have piqued the interest of filmmakers and playwrights. In July 2020, the company Kaola Productions announced that it was working on the production of a Broadway musical based on the history of Leonardo's Salvator Mundi. In April 2021, Antoine Wittgen directed a feature-length documentary entitled The Saviour for Sale, focusing on the painting and its exclusion from the 2019 to 2020 Leonardo exhibition at the Louvre. Shortly afterward, in June 2021, Andreas Kofod's documentary The Lost Leonardo premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, exploring how the painting became the most expensive ever sold and the trail of buyers involved, the debate around its attribution and provenance, and its failure to appear at the 2019 to 2020 Louvre exhibition. A team of French scientists subjected the unframed canvas to a weeks-long forensic examination with some of the most advanced technology available to the art world, and in their undisclosed report, they had pronounced with more authority than any previous assessment that the painting appeared to be the work of Leonardo's own hand. But the controversy made headlines again with the release of a new French documentary claiming that the Louvre had concluded that Leonardo had merely contributed to the Salvator Mundi. Set to air on French television, the documentary features two disguised figures identified as French government officials, asserting that Crown Prince Mohammed would not loan the painting to the anniversary exhibition because the Louvre refused to attribute the work fully to Leonardo. In a telephone interview, the documentary's director, Antoine Wittgenstein, said he stood by its claims, saying the president of the Louvre had refused to comment on the museum's judgment of the Salvator Mundi. The Louvre had insisted that the report on the painting's authenticity did not exist, Mr. Wittgenstein said. Despite their denials, the Louvre curators had secretly prepared a glossy magazine-style 46-page summary of the conclusions of their forensic examination of the painting. Its existence was first reported in March 2020 by Alison Cole of the Art newspaper. Scanned copies of the confidential report became prized possessions among prominent Leonardo experts across the world, and the Times obtained multiple copies. According to the artnewspaper.com, due to a slip-up, several copies of the book appeared momentarily in the Louvre bookshop amid the pile of Leonardo exhibition catalogues, and one copy was inadvertently sold and subsequently copied and leaked into the public. The book consists of various sections, examining all the existing theories surrounding the controversial attribution to Leonardo, the provenance as well as the new scientific data. Its authors came down in favor of the work being autograph, but couched their conclusions diplomatically. Looking at the Salvator Mundi in the context of the detailed investigations of the Louvre's own masterpieces, the St. Anne from 1503 to 19, Mona Lisa from 1503 to 19, and St. John the Baptist from 1508, they state that their examination seems to us to have demonstrated that the work was executed by Leonardo. The authors conclude that the originality of the preparation, the use of powdered glass in the paint layers, a practice Leonardo used, though not exclusively, more and more over time, probably as a drying agent, and the remarkable use of vermilion in the shadows and the hair, make it likely that the painting is autograph and dated to Leonardo's second Milanese period, 1506 to 1513, after he painted St. John the Baptist. Experts at the Centre for Research and Restoration of the Museums of France, an independent culture ministry institute, used fluorescent X-rays, infrared scans, and digital cameras aimed through high-powered microscopes to match signature details of the materials and artistic techniques in the Salvator Mundi with the Louvre's other Leonardo masterpieces. The thin plank of wood on which the Salvator Mundi was painted was the same type of walnut from Lombardy that Leonardo used in other works. The artist had mixed fine powdered glass in the paint, as Leonardo did in his later years. Traces of hidden painting under the visible layers, details in the locks of Christ's hair, and the shade of bright vermilion used in the shadows all pointed to the hand of Leonardo, the report concluded. All these arguments tend to favor the idea of an entirely autographed work. Vincent de Louvin, one of the two curators of the anniversary exhibition, wrote in a lengthy essay describing the examination, noting that the painting had been, quote, unfortunately damaged by bad conservation, unquote, and by, quote, old, unquestionably too brutal restorations, unquote. Jean-Luc Martinez, the Louvre president, was even more definitive. The results of the historical and scientific study presented in this publication allow us to confirm the attribution of the work to Leonardo da Vinci, he wrote in the preface. A planned section of the catalogue detailing the authentication was removed before publication, and the museum ordered that all copies of the report be locked away in storage. Sophie Grange, a Louvre spokeswoman, said museum officials would be forbidden to discuss any such document because French rules prohibited disclosing any evaluation or authentication of works not shown in the museum. Corinne Hershkovich, a leading French art lawyer, said these long-held traditions had been formalized by law in 2013 in a decree establishing the status of heritage conservators. But with the French refusing to talk about the painting and the Saudi refusing to show it, the proliferating questions about the painting have taken a toll, said Robert Simon, a New York art dealer involved in the rediscovery of the Salvator Mundi. Did Leonardo da Vinci's studio paint the Salvator Mundi twice? A new study that came out last year, 2022, comparing preparatory drapery drawings by the artist as well as known copies of the now infamous work, found significant variations in the details, suggesting that Leonardo may have created two versions of the composition. The theory comes from Martin Clayton, the head of prints and drawings for the Royal Collection Trust at Windsor Castle. Clayton gave a presentation of his latest studies at Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi Revisited, an October conference in Leipzig, Germany. The key detail under review is the intricate drapery in Christ's sleeve, hanging from his arm raised in blessing. In the famous version now owned by Saudi Arabia, a darker outer robe surrounds the folds of a pale shirt. That's also how the sleeve appears in the best-known copy of the work, the Gannet version, so named for Paris's de Gannet collection, where it previously belonged. Other known copies by Cesare da Sesto in Warsaw, Giampietrino in Detroit, Girolamo Alibrandi in Naples, and a lost one from Zurich's Stark collection also feature a similar handling of the sleeve. But there's another copy, known as the Worsley or Yarborough Salvator Mundi, after the collections that once owned it. In that painting, which hasn't been seen since appearing at auction in Reims, France in 1962, there is almost a puff sleeve with a cuff at the wrist. There are two Leonardo drawings in the Windsor collection believed to relate to this area of the painting. Both are part of a group of 500 surviving works on paper that would have served as studio models during the artist's lifetime, aiding his workshops in carrying out his commissions. In one of the drawings, the artist includes a detail of an upraised arm at more of an angle than the finished work, but with the folded fabric draping around the wrist. The other drawing shows the same sleeve with the cuff as the Yarborough Worsley Salvator, with its pleats rising vertically up to the wrist. Clayton's presentation offered the possibility that Leonardo's studio was working on two versions of the Salvator Mundi at once, varying some of the details between the works. He also raised questions in connection with the first drawing, which also carefully rendered the fabric on Christ's chest including an omega-shaped fold that some art historians believe symbolizes the wounds of the crucifixion. The omega fold is faithfully replicated in the Gannet and Yarborough Worsley Salvators, but difficult to discern in the final painting. This suggests that later restorations, which are known to have been extensive, to the point that some experts doubt the attribution to Leonardo, could have obscured the artist's original work in that area of the painting. Art historians have noted the similarity between the preparatory drawing at Windsor and the Yarborough Worsley copy before. In the 2019 book, Leonardo's Salvator Mundi and the Collecting of Leonardo in the Stuart Courts, authors Margaret Dalival, Martin Kemp, and Robert B. Simon dedicated an entire chapter to the drapery drawings, noting that it's possible that the Yarborough Worsley copyist had seen Leonardo's painting in an unfinished state. Rather than painting two versions of the Salvator Mundi, the book suggested the artist could have merely revised the sleeve, changing the folds in the drapery late in the game. After doing my own research, I then went to watch the Andreas Kofod's documentary, The Lost Leonardo, and there were only 2 points that I did not cover in my own research. One, the piece of walnut wood that was used for the Salvator Mundi painting had a knot in the middle, which apparently, according to an expert in the documentary, would have made the painting weak, and he says that Da Vinci would never have done this. The second point is they talked about a free port system, which is basically a form of money transfer to possibly avoid paying tax. That's my definition of it. You don't pay tax on an object if the object is in transit. And this is what Wikipedia says. Free ports are a series of government-assigned special economic zones where customs rules, such as taxes, do not apply until goods leave the specified zone. The theoretical purpose of such free ports is to encourage economic activity in the surrounding area and increase manufacturing. Critics of such schemes see them as possible tax havens and open to money laundering.
There are only about 15 Leonardos known. To say I have found a picture like this is just so far-fetched. You're just going to look like a fool.
This is the most improbable story that has ever happened in the art market.
It's not even a good painting. So I find this painting that's cataloged as after Leonardo. The lost Salvator Mundi, the savior of the world. For whatever reason, this picture attracts my attention, and we decided to buy it.
The painting was very damaged, and I removed some retouching. My hands are shaking. No one could have painted this except Leonardo.
The joke was that was a contemporary painting because 90% of it was painted during the restoration.
Something's fishy here.
But that's ridiculous.
We have extensive technical analysis of the picture, infrared, new X-radiography.
It's been authenticated. Wow.
Oh, God.
It should be Leonardo attributed.
If it was by the hand of the master, then it would be exponentially upon exponentially more valuable.
It was worth in excess of $200 million.
This is the male Mona Lisa. You're now buying a global celebrity.
Pour négocier ce tableau, j'utilisais un ami à moi qui est un ancien joueur de poker. C'est du jeu commercial.
It's not about art and love. It's about money. It's about transferring funds.
Whenever there's a lot of money involved, the world becomes a bunch of worms intertwined. You can stick it in the desert and lure tourists.
It's not just art history, it's world politics.
Everybody was complicit in dreaming up lost Leonardo da Vinci.
Nobody really cares what the truth is.
240 million. 300 million. 400 million. So,
this is the most expensive painting ever sold in the history of the art world.
Where the hell is that painting? Nobody knows where it is.
So thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you on my next video.